And welcome to Cook for Victory. It is day 16 out of 20. I can't believe we've already made it this far. We don't have long to go at all. If you've missed me, I'm Maddie.
And I'm Millie, and we are cooking tonight at Cookery School at Little Portland Street.
I have been a pastry chef, I know, for over 10 years, which is terrifying. And I have been doing work as a teacher here at Cookery School for the last 3 years.
Yeah, I'm from London. I've done my professional training here at Cookery School, and before that was a personal chef in Tuscany.
And so over the past 15, tonight being our 16th, we have done quite a few different things, very like continental British style, but beautiful, tasty, easy, I hope. And hopefully you've been able to follow along, make something new, learn something new, caramelize your onions. And tonight we've got something a little bit different, but still we're going to try and keep it as simple as we can, as we always do.
Yeah, we're making a delicious chickpea curry, and with that a very nice cooling raita, which is like a sort of yogurty cucumber dip. And to go with that, of course, some rice to mop up all the lovely juices. So
it's going to be a good night tonight. I'm hoping you guys will be able to keep alongside us while we're cooking. We're going to take it nice and chill. And of course, always send us photos, not just of your beautiful finished product, of your progress. If it takes you 30 years to chop a lot of spinach, it's going to take us the same amount of time. So you guys should be able to keep up with us. For the very first thing, we're doing 2 different types of rice. So we're going to go and get them started with lots and lots of water. So we've got brown rice and we've got white rice. Both are a little bit different. So your brown rice is going to take a lot longer to cook and going to take a lot more water.
This is just long grain brown basmati. So this has got the brown on still, whereas our white rice, as you can see, it's going to cook a little bit quicker because it hasn't got that brown. So it's a much more tender. But yes, this will cook much faster, but this one is a little bit more nutritious. It depends what you're going for, but you can cook either, keep it in your fridge for 1 or 2 days and then just nibble at it as you go. So this one, it takes much, much longer to cook. Up to double the amount of time, roughly. So it's going to need a little bit more water to account for that longer cooking time. So we're going to do 5 cups of water to 2 cups of rice.
So double and a half?
Double and a half, yeah.
So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 cups. And we're going to push the limits of this pot. But you can always top up with water as it's cooking. The last episode we did brown rice. We ended up adding a tiny bit more water during the cooking time just to account for what had evaporated over the... You can pop it on.
Yeah.
And then for our white rice, same cooking process, but just slightly less water because it does cook for slightly less time as well. So for these ones, if you've got 2 cups of rice, you're going 4 cups of water. But both exactly the same. We're going to bring them up to the boil before anything else happens.
Sorry, that's me.
It's heavy with all that water inside. And again, we're...
Right, just making sure these grains of rice are starting to sink. And
you go.
So we're going to bring these up to the boil, and then we're going to turn them down to a simmer, and they're just going to tick over until all the water has evaporated off. So this is the evaporation method. You can steam your rice, you can boil it like pasta. This is probably one of the simplest ones. So we're going to bring this up to the boil, and then we're going to forget about it, send it to the back for a nice long sleep. But we're expecting our white rice to take probably 10 to 15 minutes, and our brown up to 40. So that's why we started off our brown rice now.
Right, beautiful. And so for our raita, it's pretty simple, but one of the main steps is you've got to get all the water or the excess water out of your cucumber. So we're going to grate it now between the two of us, put a huge pinch of salt on it, and just let it sit to the side, and all this excess water is going to drain out. And then towards the end, we're going to season it, put a bit of salt, pepper, a little bit of cumin on top with some lovely fresh mint. I think it's like a stage up from just putting yogurt with your curry. It's like a really, really tasty, fresh, light yogurt.
Definitely. So we're going to start with the core setting of our box grater. So just be careful not to get your fingers near the grater. It can be quite sharp.
Yes, watch
so
your
just going to go down. You don't need to drag it back up because it's only sharp in one direction. And we've got a colander on the side ready to pick up all this juice that's going to come out. once we add our salt.
And a good, hefty pinch of salt. I think my microplane is really sharp. What's your thumb? I think it's very common for people to underestimate your old grater or your microplane, but it's very good at nicking the top of your thumb. So as soon as if you're getting towards the end and you're not anywhere near as comfortable as you are, or you were to start with, don't stress about finishing it off. You can eat it as a snack or just pop it in it or chop it up a little bit. It doesn't need to go through the grater.
Yeah, when I get towards the end, I end up just using much more of my palm than I do the tips of my fingers, just so they're not anywhere near.
I'm done.
Getting a nice cucumber
I need to
finish.
get Jeffrey.
And if you keep the end on, it's just a nice handle to have. Great.
So this is going to sit in a colander for kind of as long as you can. Doesn't need to be, I would say definitely over 15 minutes. You want to get as much water out as you can because the yogurt is already quite, not watery, but it's quite loose already. So any excess water is going to make it less of a nice thick like yogurty dip and more of a soup, which is not really what we want.
And we're using really nice, like thick set Greek yogurt, so it should be quite a thick thing at the end, especially after we squeeze out all the water from this.
And we're going to go a good pinch of salt. Let's so something for one cucumber, something like this. You can be quite generous. Worst case scenario, you can like rinse or pat the rest of it off, but it's just going to help to drain all that water out from the cucumber. So I'm going to pop that all in and give it a nice little toss, and then we're just going to forget about it for a little while. Set it off to the side. I got so much cucumber everywhere, to be honest. And you'll see just as the time goes by, so much water just came out.
Especially the more you grate it, the quicker it will come out. So when we did our pickled cucumber episode, you didn't have that much coming out, but the more you grate it, the more liquid it's going to release.
Yeah.
So a good moment to just clean down your boards for the next bit, and our rice is about to come up to the boil. So we're not going to stir it because you never ever stir long grain rice. We'll just keep an eye on it to make sure it doesn't bubble over.
Because we've got a lot of water in that pan.
Risking it as always. Thank you. Right, so we're going to grab our pot for our curry now. So we've got like a nice wide, heavy bottomed pan. We're going to start with some oil. So we've just got some rapeseed oil because it's nice and neutral. But traditionally probably use something like ghee or coconut oil as well. We've got some cumin seeds. So these are just the whole cumin. We're also going to be using some ground cumin later on, but this gives nice texture. And you usually start with whole spices if you are using them in a curry. So we're going to begin by braising those over a medium heat.
So curries are a little bit different to a lot of the things that we've done so far in that you may not believe it, but we're not starting with the onions. We're not going to caramelize them. In this instant, we're actually getting all the flavors out from the spices. So particularly if your spices are very old and they've been sitting in your cupboard for a million years, kind of frying them or braising them is going to bring excess flavor out. So we're going to do it with the cumin seeds to start with, and then we'll slowly go with our onions and the rest of our spices. It's just how you get all the flavor out of your spices as opposed to chucking them in dry, either at the end or something like that.
Great, so we've got some very, very tiny weeny baby onions tonight, which is why we've got a couple. But in your recipe, will just say 1 red onion. We're going to start by just very, very carefully peeling them.
I'm going to watch our rice.
It's on the...
I'm worried it's going to run away from us. So as soon as it comes up to the boil, which I can see they're both very, very close, we're just going to take them to the back, and the simmer it needs to be moving, so it's not dead. It's still got a little bit of a bubble on top, kind of what this one looks like now. And then we will just drain all the water off and then check if it's cooked once that's done. But I feel like it's really close and I feel like it's going to bubble over. Okay.
A little bit like pasta. If you walk away and you've got a slightly overfilled pot.
But we're not going to stir it. Okay. 2 seconds.
You want to say about watch
I
pots?
know, but the brown rice is definitely going to
make you nervous.
Yes, it's making me nervous.
I can grab you another pot if that'll make you feel better after.
No, I think it'll be fine. All right. This nice boil here is going to go. They're both going to go at the same time, for sure. So even if it's tempting, we're still not going to stir them. See how this happy boil here and this happy boil here, and they're
Oh yeah, we're there.
We're there. We're taking them back to have a little snooze. So just going on the back burner, just so we can get them out of the way. Simmer. So medium, still a little bit of a soft bubble, just not so vicious as before.
So you can begin to peel your red onions. So I'm going to chop off the top. So just like every night, but if you've missed any of our other episodes, we're going to just chop through the center. And then I'm going to make sure my tip of my knife is anchored, cut through the middle, and then we're going to peel it. So as Maddie was saying, just make sure you're not stirring your grains of rice. That one? Especially long grain, it's just going to break them up and they'll get quite mushy. So we're going to go down until the layer looks really shiny, there's no dry bits or anything that's looking a little bit ugly. And we're going to go a nice fine dice on this. Everything's going to have like quite a fine texture, shouldn't be any big chunky bits of anything. Apart from our chickpeas.
Yeah, we're not pureeing this or anything, so we're going to go nice and small, kind of match the
one
size
more
of the chickpeas.
This one looked fine, but towards the top it was really dry, and if I go down one more layer, it's like lovely bright red and not looking quite so old. So sometimes you do need to go one more layer even if it looks fine.
Don't be shy. We've got the world's smallest red onions, so we've gone for 2 or 3 if they're this size, although I haven't seen this size very often. If you have this size at home, it might be worth
very cute and dinky.
Getting a second or third one out.
And usually I like to just peel everything at the same time so you can get rid of all the rubbish off your board and you're not running around bits of onion scraps everywhere. Our cumin seeds, we have our medium low. So they're not doing anything quite yet, but you're basically looking for them to start to sort of shimmer in the pan, and I'll just do a little wiggle.
But you should also be able to smell it.
Yes.
The whole reason this step is in the recipe is just to bring the fragrance to life. So it should be like very similar to your garlic or anything like that. You should be able to smell it before you do anything else. So, and again, we're not in a rush. We're still taking care of our onions. So.
And things like spices, as Maddie was saying, they don't have much water in, but they are full of oil, and you want to sort of wake up those oils, release them into the pan. This is like a really good example of how flavour gets into things. So you have things like oil-soluble flavours. So all the time when we talk about frying your onions, frying your spices, what other things? Infusing like milk and stuff, that's because... Have we done that?
I was like, what else do we do?
We do that because oil is a really great carrier of flavour. Other things that carry flavour well are things like water. So of course you have stock, which is a really great example. Delicious. And also alcohol. So you think of vanilla extract as a classic one. So you often want to... The reason why we follow these steps is because we're trying to get the most out of all our ingredients. Yeah. And in this situation, we've got lovely essential oils trapped in our seeds that we're trying to get out. And I still can't even smell them, so we're just going to let them keep on going.
A simple recipe as well. So you want to use...
Take your time.
Yeah, you want to use everything
anything
from your ingredients, not just bash it all in and hope for the best.
And yeah, definitely most people in Britain will leave their spices in the cupboard for 6 years, forget about them. And they might not be at their best, so it's good to kind of bring them back to life a little bit, give them a little reinvention. So dicing, we've done this a couple of times, but again, if you've missed any of our other episodes, we're going to do many, many tiny cuts this way, but we're not going to go through the roots. So we're going to just use the tip of our knife because that's nice and precise. And if you have got tiny, weeny baby onions like we have today, you're going to use maybe a smaller knife for a bit more precision. So I'm just going to do my small cuts.
Oh, these are...
Try and get them as close together as I can.
Little babies.
And of course, a sharp knife is a safe knife, so try and get your sharpest one out when you're doing these sort of things so that it doesn't slip. And then once I've got my dice in one direction, I'm going to do it in the opposite to get my lovely fine cubes of onion.
And in terms of accuracy of your chopping, the best bit is the very end of your knife. A bit more control over it. It's always a bit smaller as well and a bit finer.
And then when you get to the root, if you've got one that's this small, you can just chuck it. But if it's a little bit bigger, you can chop around your root as well.
Everything's different when it's tiny.
If you've not met my friend Jeffrey, he's been around the block, you know, we've had him for ages. This is just a sort of handy bench scraper. It means I'm not tempted to scrape the knife with my fingers, getting them involved. I'm not scraping like this. This is like my worst noise ever. So instead of scraping like plastic off your board, blunting your knife, you can just use Jeffrey's, nice and dull. So I'm going to scooch all these to the side.
And we're going to get some of our spices. So again, this is not the British inspired menu we have been kind of sticking to. This is definitely a different kind of spice palette as well. So we've got some cumin seeds, we've got some ground cumin as well.
Got some chilli.
Got some chilli, very un-British.
Rock the boat today.
And then, yeah, I guess this is probably one of the more simple curries that you can do. This is very much a shop your pantry. So it's just a tin of chickpeas. It's got some spinach and tomato in it, but you could use a tin of tomato as well. Like we've got them fresh today because it's summer and you have to use the tomatoes when they're in season. But yeah, tin of tomatoes is absolutely perfect as well. And these spices are pretty readily available. These aren't, they're not wild spices that you're not going to be able to find anywhere.
I don't know if my mic can pick it up, but these are singing to me. They're doing a very little
They're singing
sizzle.
to you. That's lovely.
Can you hear that?
Yeah, and I can kind of smell them as well.
And they're actually starting to dance around in the pan a little bit. If I leave them for a little bit longer, you'll start to see them move a little bit quicker. But they're just sort of shimmering around. The oil isn't super hot. We're never taking it to smoking. It's just on medium-high heat, and I can start to smell it as well.
Yeah, I can smell it.
Lovely cumin smells.
Smells good.
Quite earthy. So give it a little shake to make sure it's all spread out. And you never want to burn your spices either. As I was saying, it hasn't got any water in it. So if you keep on cooking this, they will just burn very, very quickly. They're a little bit like garlic. Whereas onions, lots and lots of water in them, so you can have them on that really high heat. This one, we just want to toast until it's fragrant. So once you can smell it, you're pretty much good to go with your onions.
Onions and spices.
So we've got our finely chopped red onion. And you can hear a little sizzle as it goes in.
Gentle sizzle. Beautiful. And at this point you can go in with your ground coriander and your ground cumin as well. It's the exact same reason, except these are already powdered forms, so they take a little bit less time to release their flavours, but we're still looking for them to become quite fragrant.
So this is called toasting or braising your spices, and again you want to do it in the oil rather than when we add the water, because it's going to release its flavour into the oil and just kind of perfume the whole dish. So I'm now going to turn this down on medium to low, and it's just going to soften very, very slowly, do its thing. In the meantime, we're going to start to finely chop our spinach and finely chop 2 tomatoes, or you can use 3 tablespoons of tinned tomatoes if you're in the winter time, or you can't get hold of fresh. Right, so I'm just going to be here forever chopping spinach finely.
I will help you out.
But I'm going to treat it a little bit like parsley, like we have on every episode. So I'm going to have it in a very tight bundle, my little cigar wrapped up. And then I'm going to just rock my knife over it. So get nice thin shreds of spinach, because this is going to turn into like a slightly green sauce.
Yeah, so this is more for the sauce than it is for the big chunks of spinach. So you kind of want to make it quite small if you can. It'll be like more of like a chunky green sauce than anything else. And same with the tomatoes. I'm going basically as small as I can get them to let them break down a little bit easier. You may have noticed, if you've had a quick read of the recipe, it's quite a quick curry. This is not one that kind of sits for a very long time. It should be quite easy to bash out easily in half an hour for sure.
But to be honest, most vegetarian curries are like nice and quick. It's a very good entry-level place to be, and they always follow very, very similar techniques where if you have whole spices, you start by cooking those lightly to toast them, then you'll move on to things like onion, garlic and ginger, then you'll move on to your ground spices and then your liquids, and you build up from there. And
if you're doing the tin chickpeas like we are, it just makes it even quicker and a lot more easy to get to.
So it should be smelling very, very fragrant in your room right now. So if you are cooking along with us tonight, please drop any questions you have in the comments. We'd love to see how you're getting on, how the pace is. If you've taken any photos, please share them with us. But in the meantime, we will just be chopping away.
Chopping away. I think the spinach will take a long time, but it is worth chopping it quite small. It's supposed to be your sauce, not part of a dish.
Yeah, some other recipes might call for a handful of whole spinach, in which case you can just throw it in and it will wilt in very, very easily. But this one's a little bit different. If you do have frozen spinach, you can also use that. So just whatever you have around. But it still needs to be very finely chopped. So same.
It's a good night to practice your knife skills. Oh no.
What?
I was going to say, if you've only done that so far, then I'm going to be chopping the spinach for a long time.
I'm just taking my time. We've got a nice leisurely episode tonight, not like the veggie bolognese Maddie's chopping for 20 years. Just taking our time. It's very relaxing. So once you get to a point where you've got some big, some small, I'll just put my hand on top, rock my knife over it until it's all looking roughly the same size.
And pretty watery as well.
And I'll just fluff it up smelling good. So our spices are really fragrant, our onion's starting to soften, and I put it down onto a low heat just while we are braising our spices, just so they don't get burnt. Knowing that I'm about to put all these watery things in, it'll stop them from getting too toasty.
That's for you.
Thanks, madam.
I guess I can put this in with yours as well.
Yeah, so our next step is going to be to add our finely chopped spinach and our finely diced tomatoes. Oh, we've got a bit of rocket in for the right. And another bit.
I'm going to put it in. And if you're looking, I don't know, we put this on the side for a very good reason. I don't know if you can see, there's a little pool of water. That's our cucumber. It's got a nice, I'd say like almost a half cup there, quarter cup, half cup. And we haven't even pressed it out yet. So I'm going to push it down a little bit now to encourage it. And then toss it about a little bit more just to get any excess water out. And it's just going to keep on draining. The drier, the better.
And because I am chopping very slowly tonight, I've just dropped down the heat on our onions to very, very low. Because the worst thing, almost as bad as burnt garlic, is burnt spices. They get very, very bitter. So if you're ever unsure, just go on the underside of cooking them. You just want them to be fragrant and not overly toasted, because they will burn quite quickly and get nasty and bitter.
It didn't seem like much spinach until we had to chop it.
And it will turn into absolutely nothing in the end as well.
Yeah, it's going to disappear completely.
The main thing is you definitely want to be chopping the stems quite finely. This is like young spinach or baby spinach, but if you've got the more mature stuff with really thick stems, you definitely want to be cutting it as finely as you would parsley. It can be quite fibrous.
Hard. We are attempting to make it quite watery, like bring it right down to, as best we can, as a fine kind of, not paste,
so you get
but
lovely
yeah, quite
green
wet.
sauce.
And if you're at the stage we are, you should be smelling a ton of spices. It's smelling quite lovely in here. Not a smell that we're usually used to cooking. Usually it's just caramelized onions, but tonight it's very spicy.
It's one of the best things about Indian cooking. It's so fragrant, very fresh. So we're doing a slightly spiced curry tonight. I've got a little bit of chili, and to temper that, that's why we're doing the raita. It's like lovely and cooling. Very refreshing summer dip. It's sort of like the Indian cousin of tzatziki or something.
Yeah.
Got a little bit of mint, cucumber yogurt. Very similar. Same but different.
Same but different. Anything to refresh. We are close. It's for me.
2 leaves left.
I'll take it.
So again, just like parsley and fluffing it around, and then rocking my knife over it until it's all nice and fine. And you know that spinach will shrink about to a tenth of the volume, maybe. Let it start. So if you've done it kind of coarsely, it will still shrink down very, very fine. Probably don't even need to go as fine as we're going tonight.
Just like that. All that spinach disappeared.
So you've got our spinach, our tomatoes, you've got green hands, and Maddie's just finishing off her spinach. I'm going to put mine in, and then as soon as Maddie's ready... Oh,
Okay, I'm almost done.
sorry, I'm not trying to rush you on our leisurely episode.
On our leisurely afternoon.
Gee, this is a good moment to revisit our white rice, because this cooks quite quickly. If I give it a little shake, I can see that it's pretty much set. But if I tilt it very, very gently, I can see there's not much water left in the pot. So this is probably a good moment to just check your rice. We have had it in for about 10-15 minutes. So I'm just going to try it a little bit. Do you want to try some? So I'm going to have a little taste just to see where it is, especially the stuff on the top, because that's furthest away from the heat. You want a little try?
I'm here.
The other thing you're listening out for is at the moment it's been very, very quiet in the back. As soon as you start to hear a sizzle, that means all the water is boiled off. It's starting to crisp up the bottom a little bit,
rice,
perhaps.
yeah.
So you want to be listening to rice as well when you're cooking it. So this is almost there. I'd say it's just like a minute or 2 off. So I'm going to put it to the back, and hopefully all of the water will have evaporated by then.
But it doesn't need any more water.
No,
and
definitely
how's our brown rice going? Is it going to be forever again?
Always. We can have a little look. So I'm just going to give it a little shake just to settle it down again. And I can just see there's tons of water here. It's just moving very, very, very slowly. So we're going to put it back on for at least another 20 minutes.
But it has made a decent
dent.
crack at the water. There's still not a ton there. So for your recipe, your spinach and your tomatoes going in, and it does say 3 minutes. It's not a timed 3 minutes, it's more like a 3 minutes from your heart. It just means we're not trying to cook all of the water out of them. We're just trying to, just the tiniest wilt to toss them in the spices. But what we're saying is it's not like a really hard cook at this point. It's just 3 minutes from the heart. A little bit.
So I'm just gonna mix this all in. It will start to release its water pretty quickly. And then we're gonna come in with our chili powder, a little bit of sugar to balance out the tomatoes, and also
a pinch of
little bit of salt.
Just to start.
And salt's definitely a good thing to add at this stage because this is going to give you a big helping hand in releasing the water from your spinach, from your tomatoes. And you're going to spill half of it across your stove, of course. Yep. That's a classic part of the recipe. I actually think curries almost always get better the next day. Those spices will sit and they'll just kind of develop and mellow. So you can make a big batch of this. They freeze super, super well. And then you can just bring it out whenever you need a quick Indian night. Yeah. And
it does last like quite a while as well. It's got, not too much fresh stuff in it. So 2-3 days in your fridge, a lifetime in your freezer. A lifetime. But yeah, it's a great big batch as well, particularly if you've got a quick chop on the knife with your spinach. This is something that you can scale really, really easily. Like do 2 or 3, have 1 fresh and keep the rest in the freezer.
Yeah, and I think chickpeas are like probably one of the most affordable forms of
protein,
like non-animal protein.
Starch, very hearty as well. Like they fill you up for quite a long time. Like 1 tin of chickpeas is easily going to be a good serve for 4 people. Like it's quite happily a very filling dish.
Right, these are beginning to wilt down. I just turned up the heat a little bit just to release some of that water. And that was my rice timer because I didn't want to forget about it and have it sizzle away. I'm sure it's going to be good. So we're going to leave it, we're not going to stir it. Just let it do its thing. So just until this has released all its water, I'm going to hold back on the spices. Should we see how that is doing?
We're close, I think. It's still, realistically, still got a lot of liquid in it. So we'll give it a good squeeze.
What we're aiming for with this is it's super, super dry, it's well seasoned. But if this is still a little on the wet side, we're going to put it in a paper towel, or you can use a clean, what do you call it, kitchen cloth? What do we call it?
Muslin?
Dish towel.
Oh, right.
You can use a clean dish towel just to make sure you squeeze out all the water. But Maddie is very strong.
It looks like I'm squeezing out a lot of water, but actually I think there's going to be more to come. It still feels very, very wet. This is more for the freshness, not necessarily for the water. We want our yogurt to keep its structure. We don't want soup. If you've got a really, really runny yogurt, it might be worth sitting it in a sieve for a little bit.
Like a really, really fine sieve.
Yeah, it's supposed to be quite thick. There's so much water coming out. We've gone from a half cup to a full cup.
How you doing?
Oh yeah.
Woo! A lot of water.
Salty cucumber water, but again, that's happy to sit for another little while, just get all that excess out there, and then I'll give it another squeeze in a little while.
All right, so all of the water is starting to come out of our curry. So looking pretty good. We're just going to go for another minute or 2, let this wilt down even more. And you can see, of course, it's gone bright green because that finely chopped spinach. I think if you're feeling really lazy and you put the whole spinach in, it would still be nice, but it would be a different texture and you wouldn't have this lovely green sauce that we're going to get at the end. Right, what do you think? Ready to go? I think we're good.
Looks good.
So this will continue to soften and break down. But in the meantime, we can add in our chili powder and a little bit of sugar to temper the heat and also the acidity of our tomatoes. And we've got a tin of chickpeas and a little bit of water. And at the very end, we're going to season this to taste with some lime.
Yes.
So it's going to be a nice sort of tart sweet balance, and a little bit more salt, of course, along the way, I'm sure. So this is the base of our curry done. We're just going to drain our chickpeas now and give them a good rinse.
We're with a touch of cold water. And this water should be just enough. Feel free to go either a little bit more or a little bit less, particularly if you're doing more. Should be just.
So we've got our rinsed and drained chickpeas. So I'm just going to let these dry off quite well. I don't want any of that aquafaba. Save this for your
vegan meringue.
Something recently.
Vegan meringue.
Save it for your hummus or something when you need to thin it out. So chickpeas go in, give them a little stir around, and then we're going to add in our water and just let this simmer together for at least 10 minutes. So yeah, as you can see, nice and quick. We're taking our time, and it was still done in about 15 minutes. So I've got 175 ml of water. And like always, we're going to bring this up to the boil and then turn it back down to a simmer. So just make sure you scrape everything from the corner, the corner of my round pot.
Ha, ha, ha.
And then let it sit down. So that is our curry, pretty much done.
You don't want to go too heavy-handed once your chickpeas are in, because they can start to get a little bit on the mushy side. So from now, we will bring it up to the boil. We'll let it sit for a little bit, but we're not going to cook it for a really, really long time, because if you bash it about, your chickpeas can kind of just turn to a little bit mushy in your pan, or at least you want to be very gentle when you're stirring it anyway. But for now, that one's going to sit to the side until we're going to have our lime juice, kind of season it to taste, but it's got to soak up a little bit of flavour just yet. We've got our cucumbers almost there. We're going to start the rest of our prep for the raita. Includes a lot of mint, nice fresh flavours.
So you want a nice big handful. I think this is probably one of the best things if you have like a window box or something to grow, because it's like a weed. It will just do its own thing. You don't even need to look after it. It will just thrive.
Goes nuts. And I think this is one of those dishes. So I think yogurt and mint are like the perfect pair.
Yogurt, mint and cucumber as well.
Be heavy-handed with your mint. It just makes it even fresher. We're doing the same thing that we did, kind of with the spinach as well, and with our parsley, just rolling it up into a really tight bunch and getting it as small as we can. And
if you want to be fussy about it, you can stack them on top of each other, roll them up, and then do very, very thin little slices. And the sharper the knife, the better, as always.
Yeah, particularly for herbs.
Yeah, if your mint starts to look a little bit black, it can get a little bit bitter, quite bruised, and that's a very good sign that you've got quite a dull knife. We all know dull knives are not safe, so...
Yeah. Not safe if you cut yourself, but at least you use Jeffrey. And we're not going to go to a paste like we did with our parsley and our spinach. This one we're going to keep, quite, not chunky, but not too small that it's going to be wet and start to bruise. It's quite nice when it's fresh like this. And we're going to get a yogurt.
So it should be like fine, dusty, but yeah, definitely not wet. That is not what we want, or black. I'm going to keep chopping the rest of mine. And I'm just picking off any big bits of stalk as I go, because they can be quite tough. Oh, it smells so good in here already.
It does, yeah. Very fresh. So I think we talked about the type of yogurt that we used, which is really, really like nice, thick, full-fat Greek yogurt. This is probably like the best. I don't know, you need full fat for a full flavour, but also you can see just how thick it is. If it's really runny at this stage, it is kind of worth letting it sit in a finer dish than this, or a finer colander than the cucumbers, just to get out any excess water, because it will turn to soup as soon as you put your cucumbers in. So you want it should be still this thick as soon as your cucumbers are in anyway, but this is delicious. Okay. All in, and if you have more mint, chuck it in.
I'm going to steal Jeffrey.
Good. And it's got a starting measure of salt, which we'll see, because we're going to season it to perfection.
And we've also seasoned our cucumbers, so they may not need quite as much salt as you think. Got all our mint. So mix in to get started, and there is a little bit of ground cumin to go on the top as well. So again, if you've got very, very old cumin that's been sitting in the back of your cupboard for 7 years and you've not even seen it, it's not seen the light of day, you might want to just give it a very, very quick toast in a dry pan with no oil, just to give it a little wake up call.
Freshen up.
A little alarm. Right?
All right.
Should we give these another good squeeze just to see?
Yes.
Just as dry as you can go. Still a good bit of water coming out of them. And if needed to, if your cucumber is still really wet and you've been squeezing it for a while, you can put it onto some clean kitchen roll just to drain it even more.
I'm just going to bring our rice to the front.
Oh, yes.
Only because it's
I can hear it.
Yeah, it's just soaked up, I think, all of its water. It sounds like it's just got the tiniest bit in the bottom. I'm going to test it, see if it's still crunchy. If it is, I'm just going to put a tiny, tiny bit of water, maybe like a quarter cup, just to make sure it's not sticking on the bottom, because it sounds quite dry. I can hear it kind of like starting to stick on the bottom. So if it's ready, I'll stop it. But if it's not ready, I'm going to add a dash of water and then just put it back on that low kind of heat at the back there. If brown rice isn't ready, I feel like you know straight away because it's crunchy as heck.
Rice shouldn't be al dente. That's my.
Yeah, there's no al dente rice. Yeah, it's still got, it's not horrible, but yeah, it's still got a bit of a crunch in the center. So I'm just going to add a little bit of water.
Right, I've been squeezing for years now, and it's still got water
And
coming
it's
out
still
of
got
it.
lots of water in it.
So just take your time.
It's your workout for the
It's a
day.
nice slow, like a nice quick curry, so you don't need to rush any of these steps. And yeah, with your rice, if you do start to hear that it's hissing and it is way off, it's still super crunchy, you're going to add another half cup of water to start. See how you're going, keep on cooking it, and then if it starts to hiss again, still super crunchy, you're just going to need to keep adding water, because brown rice does take quite a long time to cook, especially with that brown on the outer edge. It's just going to take a lot longer for the water to hit the center.
Should I get some paper towel? Is this...
No,
No,
I'm strong.
I must get it all out. From 1 cucumber, I think we're at a cup of water. So
Incredible.
I know. It's tempting to drink. I'm going to measure it.
You're going to measure
Once
it?
you're done, obviously. Get as much water out as you can. I'm going to see how much is there.
You could even do this the day before in the fridge and do most of the hard
Let it
work
sit-
with gravity.
Yeah. You don't just have to spend your whole night pressing cucumber. You can put it in the fridge overnight.
I can't
let it
believe how
sit.
much is coming out.
Yeah, so much.
Still, you'd think I was like
And-
a little weakling. Just right, here we go.
This is it. It's happening.
It's happening.
It's
It's
going
pretty
in.
dry. It's also starting to clump together. There's really not much water left. One last shake, and then I'm just going to scoop all of this stuff out.
And I'm going to see how much water is in that huge cucumber.
Very thorough. And all of that green from the skin, right?
Almost a cup. I was close.
Maddie's going to drink that later.
Yeah.
I know it. Right, I'm going to give my hands a quick wash.
I'm just going to give this a little toss through, because we did have a really hefty pinch of salt in with the cucumber. A lot of it will be in the juice, but we don't want to go in with the pinch of salt in the recipe just yet, just in case. It has taken a lot of salt in that dried out cucumber, but you can see, even with the cucumber in, it's still like quite firm. So it's not looking like soup in your bowl. It can kind of, you can draw a line in it and stuff like that. So that's really what you're looking for. You really
Smells
don't
so
want it to
good.
be sloppy, and it smells fresh.
Right, tasting time. So of course we've got our tasting spoons and tasting bowl, just so we can be
And that cucumber
super
juice.
clean and hygienic about our cucumber juice. It's like an isotonic drink waiting to happen. Salty cucumbers.
And I can actually hear the curry has come up to like quite a good boil. So in terms of the color, like it's gone a bit like dark. The tomatoes have started taking a little bit of brown. That bright green has turned to like a darker green. So it's come up to a vicious boil. We're just going to let it sit low and slow for a little while until we are ready to taste and season, everything like that. And again, not being too vicious with your chickpeas, because they're starting to get quite tender now. So I'm turning this down to like 5, 6, kind of medium. And then I'm going to put it to sleep again over here.
Right, so we're going to have a little taste of our raita, and once it's done, we can just let it sit in the fridge. Oh, we're going to eat it quite soon.
We
But
are
if
gonna
you
eat it.
did want to make it ahead of time, you can leave it in the fridge.
I'm hungry. It's quite tart. I
It's
think
quite
like
tart.
the yogurt is quite
Oh,
like...
that just like hits me in the back.
Yeah, so I think I'll start with about half the salt that was in the recipe, so not the included one in your cucumber. And we'll see. The yogurts are quite acidic. Okay, no more.
No mas.
No mas.
Right, sorry. Got to be
I'm
dissolved.
hungry.
Better?
Getting better, less tart. I can still taste the mint, but I agree.
So acidity will just like hit you in the back of the palate. And you'll literally like make you salivate. It's a very weird sensation when you've got something really sour.
Or really sweet as well. Something that's
That's
very
true.
sour and or very
Sets
sweet
my
goes
teeth on edge
straight
trying
to
to
the
carry
back. But the best balance of anything that's super sour or sweet is a
little
good
bit
pinch
of
of
salt.
salt.
We're such stuck, right?
Oh, yeah.
But it's true. Most things, salt is such an amazing flavour enhancer, even though it's not great for your cholesterol. We do love it.
No, salt is good for you. that hit the spot. And also now I can taste the mint as well. So
really toned down the acidity, actually.
Yeah,
crazy.
it's taken it right down, but also it's brought out. So the cucumber was there, but there was not much mint there. Could use a little bit more mint if I'm being honest.
I was going to say like the smallest pinch of salt.
Let's do it.
I'm not saying a lot, just like a little one.
No, let's go.
And if you've missed my big, small, medium pinch, when I say that, it is, obviously with my hand, everyone's fingers are different, but you get to use your salt and you get to know it more. You'll know when I'm talking about something like this. Small pinch, it's a pretty tiny amount, medium, like that. So a big jump already, and then I'm probably gonna need more for my next one. Big pinch, 4-finger pinch. So this is what you're using when you're seasoning things. If you're trying to figure out how much I'm adding, if I'm saying a small pinch, it's like pretty close, not too far off. Sometimes it's even at half a small pinch. And that's basically what this was at. It's tasting really, really good, but it's just a tiny bit, it was just like a little
extra
off.
mint out there.
Right. Howie.
It's perfect.
Good? Better?
I think it is.
Did that last pinch do
more
the job?
mints, that's my personal opinion.
Yeah,
it
says a large
shy
handful.
on the mint. But no, that's tasting really nice.
Really nice? I'm gonna have some
And it's going to get a little bit more flavoursome as it sits as well. Yeah. Because the salt will kind of, soak in a little bit. So that one's good to sit to the side. And we've got a few spices. So we said this is quite a simple curry in terms of spices as well, but also to do. It's done now. We just need to season. We're going to wait until the rice is ready.
Should we have a taste now,
See how it looks, how it tastes.
And then we can do
it
spice
looks
test.
Beautiful.
Having just put away this. So. Oh, no, wrong one. And you want your tomatoes to be fully softened. Should be nice and saucy. If you feel like it's getting too dry, maybe your flame is a little too hot, you're going to add a splash of water because it shouldn't be very, very dry. You want your rice to soak up all that lovely gravy. And of course, the last thing we're going to add to this is a little bit of lime juice at the very, very end. Would you like a taste?
I always want to taste. Like I said, I'm hungry.
Oh, that's really good. A little bit of heat at the end.
Yeah, not too heat.
Not too far off.
Yeah, not too bad.
I don't want to add a lot of salt at this point because it's going to continue to reduce down and cook and soften. So at this point, it's a little under-seasoned, but just knowing that it's going to continue to reduce, it might get over salty if I add too much. So we're going to leave it as it is, let it continue to cook. But it's tasting pretty good at this point. All right, so we have here some spices. Play a little mix and match, pair up.
I think it's really easy to buy ground spices and have no idea what they look like if they're whole.
True.
And no idea what you're looking at either.
So first one, that I think most people will have seen at home is cinnamon bark. So this actually comes from a cassia tree and is literally the bark of the tree. It's dried, it's curled up, and then you can get like the big long sticks, you can get the wider ones. Depends where you get it from actually, you can have quite different flavours. But very nice warming spice, goes very well with apple.
Very Christmassy
so in
actually
our
as
later
well.
episodes where we do an apple crumble, we add a little bit of cinnamon to that. So that is our cinnamon, and when it's ground, you want to make sure it's nice and fine, otherwise it can be a little bit bitty. Then what we've already come across tonight is whole cumin. So just these tiny, tiny little seeds that look a little bit, almost like fennel seeds, very similar in appearance.
They do look very similar, just a bit longer, kind of like long grain rice, whereas fennel seeds are like little babies, a bit rounder.
A bit greener.
And I think cumin, the powdered form, is really, it can be quite powerful, whereas
very
I think
earthy.
cumin seeds are a little bit sweeter and it's not as like punchy as ground cumin. Sometimes people go nuts with the ground cumin, where a few whole cumin seeds would be lovely.
And I think it's always a good idea to label your spices very well, because you can see these all look
really similar. They're all brown.
So you got a block nose for whatever reason. You're going to find it quite hard to tell the difference between them.
And also, we talked about leaving spices in your cupboard for 10 years. Even though they look a little bit different, if you smell them but they're not fresh, even cinnamon, like you won't be able to smell the difference if they've been sitting in the cupboard for a long time.
Really
They'll
dull
just
down.
smell like flour. They won't smell like anything.
So if you can, I think whole spices, they hold on to their flavour a little bit better because they've not been ground. So whole spices are a good thing to have in the store cupboard, but you do have to then grate them, of course, which is a little extra work.
So we've done cumin,
Next
which
thing,
is a pretty common one in curries and also kind of Mexican spice as well. Cinnamon.
immediately I can smell this. So we got some cloves. These are actually dried flower buds. I don't know if you can see. They got the tiny little flower at the top. And these are extremely powerful. You barely need any of these in a dish.
Like
You'll literally call for maybe 3 in a recipe.
1 clove to a litre or something.
You'll often see an
mighty,
eighth of a
powerful.
teaspoon used, a very rare measurement, in cloves because they are very, very strong in flavour. They're actually quite good for a toothache apparently, but they don't taste very nice to chew. Yeah, they've got the same. They've got some sort of numbing thing in them.
This also speaks to me, a very, very Christmassy
very,
style.
Very Christmassy.
So these are kind of your more common ones, and I think we used a lot of nutmeg in our bechamel that we did in our mac and cheese. Nutmeg is super common, super delightful, but I think for me, I love whole nutmeg because I think it adds a much nicer flavour. So this is a whole nutmeg, and it's quite spicy.
Slightly sweet. It's sort of in the family of like cinnamon and clove, very warming.
But these little nuts, they last for forever. So you can grate off, say, like a fifth of that, and that's plenty for one thing. So it goes quite a long way.
So this is just like a really fine raft style grater. These were actually invented by carpenters because they're same as using woodworking. So they're very, very fine. They've got like little raised teeth. And really good for anything hard. So you can grate cinnamon on them, chocolate, parmesan, any hard cheeses, but also nutmeg.
Anything that's hard that you want to become very soft, very quickly.
And again, if you're grinding things fresh, they have much better flavour. So you can, I can smell it already.
Yeah, and so
one of my
you
favourites.
could add...
Kind of looks like a brain inside.
Half teaspoon of the ground nutmeg, or you could add a tiny piece of that fresh whole nutmeg, and they will have the same flavour. And I think it carries so much better as well.
If you haven't got one of these, most box graters do come with a really fine grater. Let's see if this one has it. So something like this is perfect, and that is just as good. Or ones with the like little star shaped ones, they're really good for fine grating. So you don't need to have one of these style graters to get the same results.
And so another common spice you might see that is ground coriander. I think so. We've got it in here tonight. It's pretty readily available. And then this is your whole version. I think they're quite beautiful. They're like little tiny pearls. Yes, they look like quinoa almost.
And these are like, these always smell a little bit sweeter to me than cumin. They're kind of often used together. They're like a really nice paired spice. And they're a little bit nutty. They go really well with things like hazelnuts. And can kind of, I think they can be used sweet and savoury, but most commonly used in curries, often in Middle Eastern cooking as well. And now I've got some spices everywhere.
Yeah, so these are your more common style that you might see a bit more often in your regular shops. And then things that are a little bit different or a bit more colourful or a bit more in slightly more different cuisine. So for me, these are quite British or continental style spices. Maybe not the whole coriander, but in terms of colour, we've got lots of these very common in what we're doing tonight. So Indian cuisine or Asian cuisines. We've got...
Whoa, look at that.
Bright yellow. I'm going to get these.
So turmeric, delicious in flavour. It's very earthy. But be careful with it. It's very easy to stain your nails, your skin, especially white clothing. So whenever I use turmeric, I'm basically using it as an arm length. This comes from a root, so you can buy it in root form, a little bit like ginger fresh, or you can buy it grated and ground and dried like this. So this is ground dried turmeric. Something else that kind of comes in a similar vein of being ground and dried is chili powder. This is something that's very variable depending on where you buy it from. So some chili powders are super hot, bright red. This one is so it's not extremely hot. If you ever see things like Aleppo pepper or the more Middle Eastern style or Turkish ones, they're often a little bit less hot, but very bright red. So they're lovely for colour, a little more fruity.
And they do still have like a nice heat, just not so powerful. I will say this chili powder and a lot of dried chili, so like chili flakes. I think we talked about holding if you have a fresh chili in your fridge for a few weeks, it gets more potent. Dry can be even more potent again. So if you have dried chili flakes and you put them in a dish, you might taste it fresh and go, oh, it's quite nice. and then the next day
It gets
soaked
hotter.
up it gets much hotter. So just be wary in terms of your dried chili. It can
I would
go from 0 to
always
100 quite
are on the side of
quickly.
caution. If you're using a brand new chili powder, if you've not used it before, use like half the amount you think. I definitely have been bitten by that before. I once bought some very, very hot chili flakes and I didn't even realise, put my normal pinch in and it was
Absolutely
just a little
on
too
fire.
much. You can actually balance out excess, like too much heat with a little bit of acid. So if you do go way too spicy on your curry, you can maybe use a tiny bit more lime juice. We've got garam masala, which is a very, very warming blend. This will sort of vary from house to house, what you put in it, but it's always kind of very similar spices, your cumin, your coriander.
Yeah, but it's
of
also can be a
cinnamon.
little bit sweet as well, because it usually has like a hefty amount of cinnamon or like a good amount of cinnamon inside. So it adds like, it is spicy, but it's also got a little bit of sweetness in it as well, which is quite nice and balancing.
And garam masala is, as we were saying, a blend, but it doesn't have any chili in it. It's just like a nice household
Mix.
sort of. No, I don't want to call it curry powder because it's different to curry powder, but it's a nice thing to use in a curry. My favourite
Millie's
spice
personal favourite
is cardamom. So these come in pod form, and they have. Actually, let me see if I can crack one open. No.
No.
Sometimes you can. Maybe I'll use a Jeffrey. So these have tiny seeds inside, which are very flavourful. The husk itself tastes of not very much.
Do you want me to use my muscles?
Yes, you're very strong. Thank you, madam.
Oh.
So, tiny little seeds inside. Let me see if I can pick them up so you can see. And these are very, very flavourful. You can buy this ground, but most commonly it's sold in pods. It's delicious in teas and things as well, actually. But this is often used in things like chai. You might have like whole cardamom pods, like whole cinnamon sticks, and they are very, very delicious. Kind of
in terms of what you're eating,
sweet,
though,
fragrant.
this is not something you would usually bite into if you see it in a dish. It's just there to soak up the flavour.
And you would break these apart traditionally with a mortar and pestle. And every family would have their own blend of things like garam masala, chai, etc. They're all quite personal in terms of taste, whether you want maybe lots of coriander or a little bit less cumin or maybe more cinnamon. It's very, very personal. So every family will have their own blend. That was...
I know,
You're
my
amazing.
magic cupboard.
So this is a mortar and pestle. So you use... This is the pestle, right? Yes. I always get those mixed up. Put them in, give them a little smack. And this is a really nice way of releasing the aroma, grinding them up. And this is actually what pesto gets its name from, the Italian sauce. So pestare in Italian is to pound. So it's all linked.
Yeah.
Trying to make sure they don't fly out the side. So you can get ceramic ones, you can get granite ones. I've seen mortar ones made of like also. Oh, that sound is making me.
Give me the heebie-jeebies.
Anyway, you can start to see the pods usually are discarded, and you'd keep the whole the whole seeds once you've ground them up a little bit more. Sprinkle them especially into sweet dishes. So one really, really lovely, extremely simple Indian dessert is something called Shrikand. You would put in your ground cardamom, some strained whole fat Greek yogurt, and just a tiny bit of sugar, and that's like a really quick, simple dessert.
In terms of what you want to eat, that outside bit is very dry and very barky,
papery.
Whereas those little seeds inside are what you're looking to eat. So if you see this in a dish, don't bite into it. It's just there for the flavour that it releases into your curry. I have done that. That's why I'm just pointing it out, to be clear.
This is used in sweet dishes, but it's actually often used a little bit in savoury as well. So some of these are more on the savoury side, some a little more sweet. You might see this in like pilaf rice, just as whole cardamom pods, along with things like cinnamon sticks and whole cloves. So they are both used interchangeably, but having them ground is a little bit nicer, you don't have to pick them out. The last one is saffron, the most expensive spice in the world, and actually by weight it is more expensive than gold. These come from crocus flowers from the stamen. They have to be hand pollinated, hand harvested, so it's very, very labour intensive. So when it calls for a pinch, it really is. It's a small milli pinch. It's not a lot because this is very, very. It's quite strong in flavour.
Yeah, it is very potent in flavour.
Beautiful colour, very like lovely orange colour.
If you soak it in water, it can turn like even a full cup, like 3 strands can turn a full cup of water quite bright yellow.
Orange,
or bright orange, yeah. And it's got, for me, I know this is very different. For me, it tastes like almost like raw cake batter. It's got like a very, I don't know, sweet, like taro or like sweet
I'm going to say
potato
this and it's
almost.
going to sound really wrong. 'Cause I love it, but to me it smells a little like bleach.
Like bleach.
But that's just me, my weird smell things. That's just what it reminds me of. But I do love it. It's another one that is fantastic in sweet and savoury. It's lovely in rice, it's lovely in that shrikhan, that yogurt dish that I mentioned.
And it does go quite a long way. Like it's
you
quite
don't need
expensive, but some recipes will count that it will say like 3 strands of saffron as opposed to a pinch or a
And funnily enough, you'll
teaspoon.
literally buy it by the gram. That's how prized it is. It's one of the most sort of jewels of Middle Eastern and Indian cooking. So that's our wonderful tour of spices across the world.
I've got
I'm going to come back to our curry.
We still need to finish up our curry. We've got our raita and the brown rice. It's got to be close by now. I'm sure Millie's going to go and have a listen. We've got.
It spoke to me.
It spoke to you.
Right. So to be honest, it wasn't saying much. It's barely sizzling. So I'm going to have a little taste of the top layer just to see how it's going. You can see it's grown.
It has grown.
It's trying to get out of the pot.
A very risky pot. It's good. It's done.
It's cooked.
Beautiful.
Which is great. I'm going to pop this to the back, and this can continue to just steam and stay warm. And I'm going to grab us some plates, I think. So we're almost ready to dish up.
So in terms of your meal, your chickpea curry, if you were just going as fast as you possibly can, it's going to take under half an hour easy, particularly because we've used the tinned chickpeas. If you wanted to get a little bit more flavour, a little bit thicker, you can always let it simmer for a little while. But again, as soon as you've boiled it up, those chickpeas are quite fragile, so you don't want to be bashing it around too much. I think we can take a tiny bit more liquid just to get a bit more juice maybe. The lime juice will actually do that. So it's not horribly spicy in terms of the chili, that is a personal preference. But we've got some lovely, lovely different spices in there. We've got that coriander, the cumin, and we're going to balance it with a little bit of lime juice. And that little pinch of sugar is what takes away the kind of raw acid flavour of the tomatoes. So I suppose we got to get the spoons. Yeah. I'm going to start with a touch.
I think it says a tablespoon in the recipe, but again, some limes are much more acidic than others.
Oh, then don't use all of it.
So I'll start with half. We can always add more.
We can always add more.
I always like to err on the side of caution because so many times I've just added a little bit too much lemon or lime and it's just, it's not quite ruined it, but you have to fiddle around with it a bit more just to counteract that acidity. So again, if you've made something too spicy or too acidic, a good fix is often like a splash of cream where applicable, so extra fat or a little bit more oil will temper the amount of acidity, because it's a bit like a little triangle, and you make sure that your triangle is... So salt, acid and fat just work in tandem. So if you've got a little bit leaning too much on one side, you need a little much more of the other two, and vice versa. So it's just like our salad dressings all over again, applies to everything. So I'm going to have a little taste.
Every day the salt.
Every day the salt.
Every day the salt.
And the acid and the fat.
And the acid and the fat.
The holy trinity of balance. And our tomatoes are now broken down, they're looking really soft. So I'm going to have a little taste and then we're going to dish up.
And a little bit of salt. A little bit.
More lime? Do you want more lime?
I want more lime. I always
Maddie
want more
always
lime.
wants more lime.
I wait to see for you because I would just drown it in lime if it was my personal... because for me, I know that it's going to sit with the yogurt as well, which is quite fresh, so you can take it quite hefty. That is not a very good lime.
Just as well, it only calls for a tablespoon because not a very juicy lime. The way you know that they are super ripe is if they're quite like a little bit squishy. If they're really, really hard, they're probably not going to have much juice coming out of it. But I think this extra, that's going to bring us up to pretty much a tablespoon.
Okay. Do you want a pinch of salt as well?
Yes, let's.
All right, let's go. And then, very rare occurrence of us able to plate up tonight. So I'm going to do one with brown rice, one with white rice.
And a nice
finish off with the raita
raita
on top as like a nice cool kind of balancer.
I have one last taste.
And have one last taste, of course, my favourite thing.
What do you think?
Salt?
More salt.
Just a little bit.
So this is quite a small pan, so we're just going to add one tiny pinch and that'll take it to the perfect point. It's not like it needs a lot, it just needs a little bit to round everything out. So we're going to dish up and then we're going to enjoy our dinner. So I hope you have been able to keep up tonight. It's been a nice leisurely one. Just lots of gentle simmering on the stove, no crazy oven work, very, very chill. Are we going on top or on the side?
on top.
All right.
Fine, I'll put it on the side. It'll be a trio. Oh, so beautiful.
You could always finish this with some extra fresh herbs, maybe some fresh coriander if you like. But the raita is very fresh on its own, so it doesn't really need much dressing up as it is.
But in terms of what we've done, that's a quick, simple, very pantry heavy. You know, these spices, they last forever. You may as well buy them in bulk. Like I said, you can just refresh them on a low heat, bring the spices back up. They can stay in your cupboard for ages and ages and ages.
Well,
The
best
rice-
bought fresh, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think if you're not using spices all the time and they're not common, just buy a small packet. You don't need to get a kilo of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much for joining us for yet another night of Cook for Victory. Please, please, please tag us on Instagram at Cookery School London. Hashtag Cook for Victory. We love to see your creations.
16 out of 20, baby. We've got 4 left.
Yes, we have. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us for another night, and we'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Bye.